I'm based in St. Paul, Minnesota, and my background is linguistics fundamentally. So I did a PhD in linguistics. Yeah.
What got you interested in linguistics and going down that path in the first place?
So my undergrad is actually architecture and French studies, just because I had a good high school program. It was pretty easy to pick up a double major. But I really thought that architecture was going to be the place where kind of my technical interests and my creativity would come together. It turns out that I'm not good at drawing and I don't like doing it. And you have to draw a lot as an architect. So it turns out that didn't work out. And actually, I had a studio class and I went the first day and I already just didn't like it. I dropped the class. And so I just looked online and the only thing open was a linguistics class. And because this class was taught as 4 credits instead of the usual 3, I was like, sweet, I only have to get one class and I could, okay, I don't know what linguistics is. I'll just take it. Maybe it's related to French or whatever. I have no idea.
What?
And so I don't want to say very long story, very short. I ended up with a PhD in it.
That's
Um,
amazing. So you
yes,
got
it was. Yeah, it was just such a stroke of luck. I sometimes I like have that panicky feeling of what if I had never found this? You know what I mean? Because it turned out to be so cool.
you were also sounds like you were a French minor, or did you also
Yeah,
go?
it was a double major.
Okay.
Yeah, but the major really went like in a literature direction. And I was like, but I had a phonetics class and it was awesome. So I did a PhD and I was teaching for a long time, but I didn't have a permanent job. I was teaching at a couple different schools and all I wanted to do was teach. I didn't want to do research. That's the only reason I even finished a PhD. But I started networking and Minneapolis has a really good UX community.
Okay.
And so I was networking around and stuff, and I kept hearing like, how do I get into this as a career? 'Cause I little by little I learned about it and how it's about solving problems
Right.
for users, right? And so I was like, sweet, this is like analytical and interesting. And I kept hearing about a certain training program, a boot camp in the area called Prime Digital Academy, and they unfortunately just closed their doors, but they were so great. And so I did that. It was an 18-week program
Okay.
and then I started out as a UX researcher. So I did that. It sounds funny in retrospect, but I didn't know that conversation design was really a thing. I thought that
Right.
if you wanted to be a conversation designer, you had to be at the source and you had to move to Seattle and work at Amazon. And I just wasn't going to do that. And I didn't realize that like people design every company can design their own bots. This sounds ridiculous because it's like you had a linguistics background, you had a design background, you had this UX thing. Why did you not? Why did it take you so long to pull it all together? But I finally did.
A question on that though. So like you realize, okay, yeah, companies can have their own conversational designers and create these bots and these like user interfaces themselves. How did you actually get your first opportunity, your first job?
I did a ton of networking, and that was one of the big things that the training program made us do was like go to. But the thing I did was 2018, and this is before the pandemic, and so there were still in person networking events and go and network and all this stuff. And they were right because every
Oh,
job I've ever gotten has had some kind of a networking element. And I think that the thing that got me in my foot in the door actually was that I was not sure if I was going to be able to get a job as a conversation designer, but I thought maybe I could be a writer, like UX writer or copywriting. And so I was writing some like little LinkedIn articles, not exactly because I expected the content to resonate with anybody, but literally for the very practical fact that I wanted some writing samples available if I was going to go for a writing job.
that's huge. People write on LinkedIn. It's like their full-time job.
Yeah. So I was writing these little essays, and some of them were like, they were about my take on some conversation design things from a linguistics lens and stuff. But I
Okay.
had a couple of contracts where I don't think that they really understood what to do with the designer. And I think I'm sure that you and everybody who's going to be watching this is familiar with the story of they think of a designer as somebody who like polishes it at the end or makes it pretty, just wordsmith it a little bit. I'm really interested in increasingly have been interested in going further upstream, right?
I'm curious, especially now that we have large language models that can do all the writing, right? And maybe even polishing. Like they can do all the things people say. Where do you think the value of having conversational design, to your point of going even further upstream, help me understand like how you're positioning that given all this like generative AI, large
Yeah.
language model context that we're in now?
I'm still figuring it out along with everybody else, but I'm a little bit of a skeptic even. And I feel like one of my one of the things that I want to make sure I do in my work is stop be a little bit of a pushing back against the idea that like LLMs can just do everything, right? And there's this throw the tech at everything mindset sometimes. And I'm just like, I'm still focused on human centered design. What problem are we solving
Yep.
for the users? And how are we going to make so when I tell people that I design chatbots and automated phone systems, a lot of times the first thing you probably get this too. They're like, "Oh, I hate chatbots." And my job, as I see it, is to make them suck as little as possible. So they aren't like if the company wanted to do the most user centric thing, they would have a live person answer everything. We understand that this is not practical. Chatbots are going to exist. IVRs are going to exist. So
Right.
how can we make them as genuinely user friendly as possible? Right?
Okay.
People are trying to get their stuff done. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody's calling and they're not like, "Oh, I'm the tech is so cool." No, they're trying to pay their bill. They're trying to solve this like weird hang up that happened with their service. My thought is tech aside, if the tech is the best way to do this, awesome. Let's use it. But the first thing we need to focus on is not how can we throw tech at this? How do we
Yeah.
make it as smooth as possible for somebody whose order got messed up, whose whatever it is to get the help they need? And so that's the lens I'm just looking through. The fact is that conversation is the medium that I've settled in, and it clicks with my background very well. But I'm still like focused on the user-centered design. And that's where the upstream part comes because it's like, the more you realize who is making the decisions about this product, they
Right.
need to hear this. And then they need to, like, we need to get in at the very beginning. Like, I advocate for let's do the research, let's talk to the users. Like, we have to understand what's going on so that we can solve their real problems. And so that's how I see my work and not uncooperative exactly, but that voice in the room being like, okay, but how is this going to help? How is this going to
Wish that.
actually make life better? And so that's like a little bit of like my contrarian streak can come out a little bit and I can just be like, no, hang on.
Yeah.
Did we ask the right questions? And so I like that. And I like all the moving pieces because it does sometimes come down to how to phrase things
Right.
that kind of stuff, but in the service of the bigger thing. And so it's just sitting there in a puzzle, and I love that stuff.
That's great. What are you working on now that excites you the most?
I have a kind of a bizarre story about how I got the current job I'm in. So I've been a contractor for PwC for since November.
I'm a former PwC person.
So I I got contacted out of the blue on LinkedIn.
Oh,
Sherry contacts me and she
yeah.
says, I would really like to talk to you. And she basically says, we have this problem and we think you're the person to solve it. Can you call me today? I was like, Whatever. You know what I mean? Okay, sure." And it was basically like, "Would you like to have this job?" And I was like, "Yeah." Because I was job searching.
What conversational design for are you working with PwC's customers?
So I'm working with their customer. It's a little bit of both actually, because I one of the things that they wanted me for was to bolster the design practice at PwC. It's been very like product people and tech people. And slowly, like the head of AI that I work for, her name is Sherry. She understands that we need more design stuff. And so she's trying to build a team of people who have some design in their background or like a design mindset so that we get more of that research in there, get more of the upstream design, not just like the polish it, make it pretty type of design. But right now I am working on a client project. And so I'm doing individual flows. Like this is a client which that has like a call center, right? One particular task that you might do, and I'm building it, like designing it end to end. And then being able to every time I have a chance to wedge in something into the conversation about we could ask users about this. Oh, you know what we could do? We could check this with users and just set the stage for this transformation. Point out the places where, oh, we don't know if that's gonna work. You know what? There's a way. There's a way to do this.
How are you supporting the broader PwC engine around thinking about conversational design? So when I was there, they were acquiring a few different digital agencies. We acquired like this one in Miami, and then they put it all under the umbrella of the experience center. And we had some like UX designers, we had product people, tech people, as you mentioned. But even back then, I wasn't even aware of what conversational design was. There was no like sense of conversational design. I'm curious now, what is that capability? What does that look like? Are there more people like you around PwC? Do you all come together and like knowledge share? Like, how is that forming?
Yeah, we're just starting that up. There are some documents that I've looked through. Okay, where are we starting from? And some of it is like the kind of design, what should I say, design best practices from end to end. That starts with
Right.
talking to users and doing
Yeah.
the whatever, and some of the like double diamond and iterate, all these kind of basics of design are in there, but I haven't seen them stick yet. And so I think we're in that stage where I think that the company knows, and the head of AI, right?
Yeah.
My boss knows that we need this,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get it, both find people who know how to do it, and then find a way to wedge it into this like tech and product engine that sort of is, yeah, we don't have time. We don't have time to do research. We're not going to iterate. We're not going to, if we're going to do it right, I've been asked to write some best practices documents to get us started and stuff, but I still feel like a total beginner in the field. And so just
You are not.
no, I'm sure I'm not. There's just so much I have to learn, and I'm learning a ton from these client projects. And so I'm
Yeah.
hoping to learn from hands-on and then bring it back and say a little bit of post-mortem, maybe what
Right.
could have gone better. If we do have a thing where when it's built out and being tested, we find that there are some problems, like I'm not blaming anybody. It's a complicated thing, but if we had made some prototypes and thrown them at some people first, we could have
Right.
saved ourselves some edit. I don't have a plan either, but I think when I'm bringing to the table is a mindset as much as anything, and try to learn the skills as I go.
What do you hope for the future for conversational AI? I know you hit on maybe some of the points of how do you go further upstream? How do you really tackle like users' problems? Anything else to add to that in terms of
Oh my gosh.
you hope a year from now, 5 years from now, the industry has evolved into?
Boy, I hope that we can solve the problem of hallucinations, which is to say, but hallucinations are the LLMs doing exactly what they're supposed to do, is come up with novel things. So this is like a little bit of education of, okay, you guys, there's no truth built into the systems, right? So what I'm hoping is that as that comes up and gets better and more reliable,
Mhm.
that we can leverage that for like genuinely coming up with answers for people in situations complex enough that like makes sense to have a giant repository and then have a little bot come and fetch the information that you need. And so I'm looking for the tech to be, I hate it. I hate that we have to put this thing that's, oh, here's the answer that the chatbot gave you. By the way, maybe totally made up. Like,
Yeah.
hate it.
Doesn't feel good to have to put that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping we get to the point where we don't have to do that, and then I feel like I will relax enough to trust these things a little bit more with
Interesting.
the actually getting the work done. Yeah.
I also like to be a little bit of devil's advocate. Like I saw this technology like all day, right? But even the fact of like humans hallucinate, there are varying flavors of how humans hallucinate, right? And is there some allowable threshold of this thing hallucinating? Because there's
Yeah.
different levels of risk associated to hallucination, right? If someone's like crediting you $1 million and like you don't need to get credit to that, that's a problem. But it's what's a hallucination at the end of the day? Humans evolve the truth. We stretch the truth sometimes. Our benefit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that's okay because again, you're not like tanking your company, but it's allowable, right? So I'm really interested in like intersections because this stuff isn't black and white, right? There's shades of gray. And even in the topic of hallucinations, which my customers talk about all the time. And it's, do you know how often your human agents are giving wrong answers? We have to know where our starting point is. And our starting
Right.
point, like humans are not perfect. Why are we seeking perfection right now? Yeah, I'm just curious, like how this is going to evolve, right? Specific
Yeah.
topic hallucinations and other kind of like ethical concerns related to AI. But the stuff is so cool, and I love seeing other women in this space, right? Because I think that that's one of the things. It's like product, it's tech, and we don't see a lot of people that look like us here. Love that you're in the space and leading the charge for one of the largest companies, one of the largest services companies in the world too.
I'm very excited. I feel very lucky, but like I said, it's a lot of learning and a lot of trying to get my 2 cents in wherever I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess last question then, in terms of the CDI fellows, like what can we do to help you? What kind of, if you haven't have to have any ideas yet, but if maybe you had some ideas or thoughts on how this platform can help bring the community together.
It's a cool opportunity, right? And
Yeah,
be able to, like, chat with other people and just cross-pollinate. Yeah.
absolutely. Thanks again for taking the time and
Yeah.
doing this for us. Yeah, we'll follow up with next steps here and some of the other programs and initiatives we're thinking of around this.
Sounds great. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, you too.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.